South African national parks play an important role in helping to protect the wildlife, including endangered species, while also contributing immensely to the tourism sector of the economy. So to highlight this, South Africans are encouraged to visit national parks across the country as part of the 18th annual South African National Parks Week being held until Sunday. As we continue to celebrate Heritage Month this morning, we also take a closer look at the state of our national parks and their importance on our heritage and tourism. Talking to us about this, we've got Reynold Thakhuli. He is the General Manager of Communications at SANParks. Reynold, great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Leanne. I appreciate the time, and it's good to talk to you.
Indeed, it always is, especially during this particular week where South Africans get to benefit with free entry into all the national parks around South Africa. So perhaps talk to us about that and the logistics around that.
Yes, as you have just indicated, that this is the 18th year where we are hosting SA National Parks Week under the theme Know Your National Parks. We started this campaign in 2006 after realizing that the majority of South Africans are not necessarily visiting the national parks. And, this can actually be attributed to the fact that, our history in South Africa is not that good. So certain people were actually moved from their homestead to make way for this national parks. And it's really a painful, past. But with this campaign and many other, work that we do within the national parks system, we are really trying to work around, those past imbalances and make sure that every single South African visit this national park as part of their heritage.
Yeah, and it is always a treat going into the national park. So talk to us again. How many national parks have we got in South Africa? Let's go on an education drive and also talk about the importance of a week like this.
Yes, we've got about 21 national parks in 7 provinces of our country, with the exception of KwaZulu-Natal as well as Northwest provinces. But as you know, that we've got protected areas that are classified under either a national park or a game reserve or a nature reserve. So in those provinces, they have not been proclaimed as, certain areas have not been proclaimed as national parks. So it's 21 of them, and Kruger National Park being the largest, where we're talking about around 2 million hectares of land in the Kruger National Park alone. So the real reason for national parks really is to ensure that all South Africans know these areas, because as SANParks, we are simply managing these national parks on behalf of all South Africans. And we are saying, please come in numbers and enjoy your time, from Table Mountain down to Kruger, Mapungubwe in the north, Marakele, Ado, just outside Port Elizabeth. And of course, we also have Mountain Zebra outside the town of Craddock. Recently, we actually do cheetah trails in Mountain Zebra. And recently, the female cheetah there gave birth to about 4 cubs. So that, it will be interesting that people can go see these animals closer to their areas.
Yeah, and it is such a treat, and it's a great saving. I mean, to be able to go. Obviously, we know it's not during holidays or anything, but if you do go and you live in the area and you can go down, I mean, it's fantastic to enjoy these national parks. How is the sector performing, by the way? Have you noticed a good uptick and recovery since those awful days of COVID-19?
We have seen quite a recovery. We're not where we're supposed to be, because as you know that we also rely a lot on international travel. We are seeing internationals coming in, not in big numbers as yet. But I must say that the sector has been cushioned quite a lot by our own domestic market. We've seen a lot of South Africans, particularly in the national parks, that have taken time to come and visit these open spaces and enjoy their time in the national parks. So we're really grateful that South Africans are considering that charity begins at home, and they are beginning to travel in numbers. So we are not where we're supposed to be, but we are doing much better than in the COVID times.
Yeah, I mean, because it is an important thing, and that people do get to go, and I mean, the money is obviously used for the maintenance of these parks, which is a massive expense. It really is. On another note, how has this initiative been received by surrounding communities? Because, you know, at the end of the day, it's also for them to go and experience what is so important and right on their doorstep. Do you see that a lot more people that live in and around those areas take advantage of these weeks?
Absolutely. We're seeing a lot of, school groups coming in. We see a lot of pensioners, which is quite interesting that pensioners have also grouped themselves to come and enjoy their time in the national parks. Since inception, we've seen just under 700,000 people taking advantage of National Parks Week. And last year only, we're just under 76,000 people that came. So we've seen the numbers really growing on a yearly basis, which is really quite exciting.
Good. How much is it normally to get into a national park on average? I mean, perhaps maybe you can give us an idea of how much people are actually saving.
We've got a 3-tier system that we use. South Africans obviously pay less. It's anything under 100 rands. And then we've got SADC countries, and obviously the internationals are paying slightly more, which is 3 times what a South African would pay normally. Yeah. So we are saying, you as South Africans are already paying a lot on taxes. Therefore, you also have to have a little bit of a breather when it comes to entrance fees into our national parks. We also have a what we call a wild card. So people can actually buy an annual card. It could be a couple card, it could be a family card, where you are not necessarily going to be paying any entry fee into the national parks. And we're also going to be introducing a customer relations management system, which will have a loyalty, a loyalty program in it, where people can actually, have points to use for their visit to any other national parks. So we are really trying to improve our offering, and also ensure that our customers are getting value for what they pay for.
So on a more serious note, there seems to be some growing concerns out there about the state of infrastructure in some of the parks, which threaten the long-term survival of our wildlife ecosystems. The national parks, perhaps talk to us about the maintenance and, how we look after them, because some people are expressing a bit of their worry as to what they're looking like of late.
COVID, Leanne, has not only affected the numbers of people coming into our national parks, but it's also affected the infrastructure, because you also have, animals such as baboon, which raided these areas because people were not there. So we do accept that, yes, there's a need for infrastructure to be, improved. And I'm glad to announce that the Department of Tourism, as well as the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, is now investing about 700 million into infrastructure programs within South African national parks. So we have started in terms of upgrading some of these facilities. I am sitting, as I'm talking to you, at the Golden Gate Highlands National Park, and I can tell you that there is work that is happening there in terms of improving the infrastructure. This work is also happening in other parks, such as the Kruger National Park. So we are really on our way to ensure that the challenges that we faced are a thing of the past. And we want to request South Africans to actually bear with us as we are, preparing for these infrastructure programs within all our national parks.
Yeah, one looks forward to that, and I do hope we get an invitation to come and look at some of these upgrades that are taking place, because it's always been a passion of the program. I know we've always done so many wonderful partnerships with you, including one where we looked very much so at the rhinos and the state of rhino poaching within the parks. And I mean, I know that it was a little bit earlier this year that we saw a 22-year sentence being handed down to a rhino poacher that was found guilty in a court. I think this was in Skukuza. And I mean, this is a great victory. However, how are we looking in terms of rhino poaching in the national parks? I know the center of it is the Kruger National Park, but perhaps you can give us an update on how that's going.
One rhino killed, Leanne, is one too many. And I think since 2008, we've really seen, these rhinos being killed in their numbers. our rhinos were really bleeding. But we are happy also to report that in the last year, we have seen a decline in terms of this poaching. Although it has moved from the Kruger National Park into provinces such as KwaZulu-Natal. But, the tactics that we are using, of course, I won't reveal what sort of tactics we are using.
Yeah.
They seem to be working. We are working with communities, tribal authorities in areas that are adjacent to our national parks, and really allowing them to have a stake in these rhinos. Owning the rhinos has actually assisted in the fight against rhinos. We're quite aware that we cannot only fight rhino poaching within the national park itself. We really have to fight it outside. Communities have been really, really helpful in terms of giving us information of those that are suspected of rhino poaching, and the police are working very hard with us to arrest those individuals. As you just indicated, that 22-year sentence has been handed over to an individual. Yeah. And the National Prosecuting Authority has also been critical in this fight. We are working very close with them and many other law enforcement agencies in South Africa and in areas such as Mozambique. So at least now there is that understanding that we have, and we will not rest until we win this fight completely.
Just finally, before I let you go, I was having a conversation with Joel off air about climate change and the reaction some of the impacts that we've been seeing around the world has been absolutely devastating. I mean, here on the continent, the flooding in Libya, what we saw happening in Morocco, bringing it back home. I mean, yesterday we just had these massive winds that were causing some destruction. The waves that we saw in the spring tides that were happening in the Cape. We saw earlier this year the floods happening as well in the Kruger National Park. I mean, perhaps you want to just give us a little bit of an insight into climate change and how it's affecting biodiversity across the national parks.
We are not spared, the challenges of climate change, but we are working very hard in terms of, designing policies and models that will work in terms of mitigating against climate change. And as I indicated, national parks are situated in rural areas. And we are partnering with a lot of institutions, both locally and internationally, as well as our local, South Africans, to actually try and mitigate against this. And also, give them awareness on what should be done in as far as mitigating against this problem. We've also, collaborated with big mining companies in as far as this particular issue is concerned, particularly around offsetting of some biodiversity issues where a mine is going to be established or is established in an area closer to a national park. So there's a lot of work that is happening behind the scene in as far as climate change is concerned, and we are taking it very, very seriously as a South African national parks.
All right, we got to leave it there. Reynold, thank you. Reynold Thakhuli, who's the General Manager of Communications at SANParks, speaking to us about South African National Parks Week. It's currently underway until Sunday. So if you're a South African citizen, take your ID with and you'll get free entry at the gate. So it's a great opportunity for you to go and visit the parks and see what you perhaps normally can't afford to get into. So now's the time to take that opportunity up.